Help me hit 7,000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and share your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone, thank you. I never thought a simple little prank could spiral into something I'd never forget. My name is Lila, and my husband Miles has always been the most trusting, easygoing man I've ever known. He's goofy in the most endearing way, always tripping over his own feet or laughing at jokes that barely make sense. Our friends have always called us the perfect odd couple, and honestly I've never minded it. Until one day, what I thought would be a harmless laugh turned into chaos. It all started on a breezy Saturday morning. My best friend, Sophie, and I were lounging on my balcony, sipping iced coffee, watching the sun glint off the rooftops of our small town. Miles had gone out for his usual Saturday errands, picking up groceries, grabbing the newspaper, and probably stopping at the cafe he's obsessed with. Sophie and I exchanged one of those mischievous glances that immediately spells trouble. "Do you think he'd notice if we left him?" Sophie whispered, her eyes twinkling. I raised an eyebrow. "Left him? You mean like for a prank?" She nodded, biting her lip. "We'll tell him it's for a surprise weekend getaway. Just pretend we're taking the car, leave him a note and watch him freak out. It'll be hilarious." I hesitated. Miles is sweet but predictable, and honestly he's too trusting. But the idea was tempting. "All right," I said, a mix of excitement and guilt crawling in my stomach. "Let's do it. But we have to be careful. No real danger." By mid-morning we had orchestrated our plan. Sophie and I packed the car with snacks, blankets, and a few emergency essentials that Miles might think were part of some mysterious surprise. Then we scribbled a note. "Miles, we're off for a little adventure. Don't worry, it's all in good fun. We'll be back soon." I left it on the kitchen counter, neatly folded, as if nothing was amiss. Then we quietly drove away, giggling like teenagers. A few hours later, we were lounging in Sophie's living room, still laughing over our little scheme. But that's when my phone buzzed. A message from Miles. "Where are you? I can't find the car and there's no note. Is this a joke?" I froze, my laughter dying in my throat. Sophie nudged me. "Oh no, he's already panicking." "Yes," I whispered, trying to mask the panic with a forced giggle. "Maybe it's funnier than we thought." Hours passed. We decided to extend the prank, just a little longer. But as time wore on, the laughter became uneasy. Miles hadn't called again, and my stomach churned with a strange mix of guilt and anxiety. By late afternoon, I realized something I hadn't accounted for. Miles isn't just goofy. He's sensitive. And he trusts me completely. Suddenly, the prank didn't feel funny anymore. Sophie tried to reassure me. "He'll be fine, Lila. He always is. Don't overthink it." But my mind raced. What if he felt abandoned? What if this backfired? I tried to push the thought away, but deep down, I knew we had crossed a line. Night fell, and the shadows in the room seemed heavier than before. Then, just as we were debating whether to call him, I received a call from Miles. Not a text, but his actual voice. "Lila." "Sophie, why? Where are you?" His voice was calm, but there was something brittle underneath, something fragile. I opened my mouth to laugh it off, but the words wouldn't come. His voice wasn't panicked, it was measured, but there was an edge I hadn't heard before. And that's when the prank started to feel like a mistake. I hung up and sank into the couch, my hands trembling. Sophie didn't say anything. She just looked at me, eyes wide. We both knew. This wasn't turning out the way we imagined. The next morning, I couldn't bring myself to check my phone. Every message from Miles felt like a dagger in my chest. And then, there was a knock at the door. I opened it, expecting Sophie or maybe a neighbor. But it wasn't anyone we expected. It was Miles, standing there in his sneakers, rumpled clothes, and the faintest trace of anger mixed with hurt in his eyes. He hadn't yelled, he hadn't shouted. He simply looked at me and said, "Come on, Lila. Let's talk. I'm tired of the games." I blinked, unable to respond. Everything I thought I had prepared for, the laughs, the fun, evaporated in an instant. The man I loved, the man I teased endlessly, was right there, and somehow, his presence alone made me feel like a child caught red-handed. If this story resonates with you, hit like to make sure more people see it and can experience the roller coaster of emotions we're sharing here. We sat at the kitchen table, the air thick with unspoken words. Miles's calmness contrasted sharply with my guilt and Sophie's nervous energy. I wanted to explain, to justify, to plead, but nothing seemed enough. He looked at me and simply said, "You thought it was funny to leave me miles away. Did you ever think about how it would feel to be on the other side?" My heart pounded. Every word he spoke was like a spotlight on my own irresponsibility. I wanted to laugh it off, to say it was just a prank, but his eyes, they held a weight I couldn't dismiss. I realized then that the prank had been a mistake. But I also realized something else. Miles's trust, his calm resilience, and the way he handled this situation. It was part of why I loved him in the first place. I had taken that for granted, and now, standing face to face with him, I felt the gravity of my actions like a physical weight. And just as I opened my mouth to apologize, Sophie muttered, almost to herself, "We might have messed up." Miles glanced at her, then back at me. "It's not about the mess. It's about understanding why it wasn't funny. Comment below what you would have done if you were in Miles's place. Share your thoughts honestly. I'd love to read your perspective." I swallowed hard, my throat dry. Miles's words lingered, heavy in the kitchen air. I wanted to explain, to laugh, to cry. Maybe all at once, but I knew none of that would fix the moment. Sophie shifted uncomfortably beside me, her usual boldness reduced to a guilty silence. Miles took a deep breath. "Lila, love you. But trust isn't just about believing in someone's intentions. It's about feeling safe, respected, and considered. You left me miles away without a thought for how it would affect me." The sincerity in his voice cut deeper than I expected. I nodded, unable to interrupt. Inside, I felt a rush of shame, followed immediately by a strange appreciation for how composed he was. For all his goofiness, Miles had a backbone I had underestimated. I finally spoke, my voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean to hurt you. It was supposed to be funny. I thought you'd laugh too." He shook his head slowly. "It wasn't funny to me. And it's not just about this one prank. It's about being able to rely on each other, knowing we're partners, not just roommates or co-conspirators in jokes that go too far." The weight of his words pressed down on me. I realized that this moment, painful as it was a wake-up call. I had been treating our relationship like a game, taking his patience and trust for granted. And now, standing here, I had to own it. Type the word trust in the comments if you think trust is the cornerstone of every relationship. Let's see how many people feel the same. We sat there in silence for a few minutes, letting his words settle. Then, unexpectedly, Miles reached over and grabbed my hand. "I'm not angry," he said. "I just need to know that you understand what this feels like, and that it won't happen again." My eyes welled up. "I do. I promise." Sophie, sensing the tension finally easing, stood up with a weak grin. "Okay. Maybe next time we plan a prank on someone else?" Miles chuckled softly, the first genuine laugh in hours. "Yes, someone else," he said, and for a moment everything felt lighter. But as the evening unfolded, I couldn't shake the thought that even the smallest actions could have massive consequences. This prank was harmless in my mind, yet it had brought our relationship to a crossroads. I realized love wasn't just about laughter and shared hobbies. It was about respect, empathy, and timing. Later that night, we all sat together on the balcony, sipping hot chocolate, watching the moonlight reflect off the rooftops. Miles leaned back in his chair, his hand brushing against mine, and I felt a quiet reassurance I hadn't expected. The prank had tested us, but it had also reminded me why I loved him so fiercely. Share this story with a friend or loved one who needs a reminder about trust and understanding in relationships. Let them experience the emotions too. Over the next few days, we spoke openly about boundaries, jokes, and what we found funny versus harmful. Miles admitted he could have overreacted slightly, but I knew better. He hadn't overreacted. He had asserted his feelings in a calm, composed way that commanded respect. That, I realized, was part of the reason I fell for him. Sophie, meanwhile, apologized profusely, promising to never involve him in any prank without his consent. Miles laughed again, this time with a lighter tone, saying, "You two are trouble, but I guess that's what makes life interesting." Even with the laughter returning, I carried the lesson in my heart. Love requires mindfulness, and even the smallest pranks or jokes must be weighed against the emotional well-being of those we care about. I learned that day that humor and love can coexist, but only when both parties feel safe, respected, and cherished. Comment below what prank you think could be funny but safe in a relationship. Let's have a respectful discussion about boundaries and fun. As the days passed, our relationship strengthened. Miles's patience and calmness reminded me that love isn't just about grand gestures. It's about understanding, compromise, and shared respect. And while I'll never stop being a little mischievous, I now know that some pranks are best left untested. Finally, on a quiet Sunday morning, Miles and I sat together with steaming mugs of coffee, smiling at each other. "You really had me worried," he said softly. "I know," I admitted, squeezing his hand. "I learned my lesson." And as we laughed together, the lesson was clear. Even in the smallest moments, love thrives on respect, empathy, and trust. And maybe, just maybe, some pranks are better left as stories to tell later, after the trust has been earned back. If you enjoyed this story, comment your thoughts about pranks gone wrong, and subscribe to follow more real-life emotional stories where every decision matters. Don't miss out on the lessons and laughs.